When you're installing stuff like this and you're getting to this stage, when you're putting bigger mods and you're doing, work like this, and we're going down the road of modifications. And when you get there, there's some things that you have to do. Our car isn't heavily modified. It's has cams, turbo back exhaust, O2 housing, fuel pump, intake, upper intercooler pipe. Nothing crazy. Just basically your bolt-ons. The removal itself was pretty straightforward. We moved a lot of things to get some arm space under there. The main problems were just getting to bolts, things like that, but it's pretty straightforward removal. Throttle body we're getting off. Even though you can take the intake manifold off, take the throttle body off like we're gonna do with the fuel rail, this just gets us a little more hand room to get underneath to get to the bottom bolts on the intake manifold.
It's actually pretty straightforward. Sensor swap over, TPS, and fast idle control valve. For the California guys, you're gonna have to figure out something to do in terms of the EGR.
We know it's better for heat, by the way, to not have, the EGR. It's a lot cooler. There's bypasses that you can run through, what is it on ECU flash. And there she is. Success. And a little bit of blood. That's what it's all about. When we were doing the fuel rail intake manifold combo, we installed it. The fuel pressure regulator was one of the problems. That had two holes on a flange that didn't line up, which is one of the issues we saw on the forum. Those two holes had to be oblonged. We did that with the drill. It's fairly simple. Make sure the O-ring doesn't pinch. There you go. The flange on the other side for the hard line of the fuel rail went on fine. Those holes lined up perfectly. Overall impressions of the products when we got them, I was impressed by. It looks great. I mean, it's not low key. You notice the intake manifold. Since there's no EGR anymore, we want to keep these two lines on the top of the throttle body so it looks stealth. But we took the EGR off here, we unplugged the sensor, and we're just going to bypass it. We're going to turn it off. We're going to cap these on the bottom, so that way we still have our hoses on top. We're going in with the intake manifold, and see how that goes. Manifold went on real simple. We had to move one clamp out of the way for the flange to go by, but all we had to do was move it, which was nice. So that was easy. Everything else has been fitting. We double checked hoses and stuff to make sure that they were all the proper length. When installing the manifold, we had some vacuum lines going to the throttle body that we needed to extend. Since we removed our EGR unit, we were able to use those vacuum lines and cut them for length so that they did work.
Basically, there weren't really many special tools that you need, but any garage tuner with the proper tools can install this. Just takes a little bit of time, but not too difficult.
I'm tightening the bottom bolts here on the manifold, which are showing to be easier to get to than the stock one was when we were removing them. We had a lot of arm space with this manifold setup, as how the plenum is placed and the runners. We had a lot of arm space to get the bolts in. The install was fairly simple. There's a lot of things to reconnect when you're doing it, so labeling them would be advised. But there wasn't anything that we ran into on the throttle body install, fuel rail install, or intake manifold install that had any fitment issues or anything like that.
The biggest problem is people spreading the word about a lot of the first manifolds and issues you guys, Skunk2 had before. Still kind of lingering now. Those are all taken care of. Those are all fixed. So all those things that I was kind of concerned with all went really smooth.
There was also a sensor that was attached to the OEM manifold for the fuel pressure regulator, and there's no spot for that either to bolt to the side of the Skunk2 manifold. But we found a nice stud that was off of the ABS unit on the firewall, we were able to use the same bracket and bolt it there so that it wasn't just dangling. Would you look at that? Would you look at that?
Would you look at that?
Just look at it.
One final touch to put the badge on. We got the intake manifold and throttle body all and the fuel rail all installed. We're getting ready to fire it up, make sure everything's good. Out of the box, the car fired up. We adjusted the TPS. The TPS was perfect. The idle was a little bit low on startup, and I'm sure that's just one of those things where they have the idle screw set all the way in. Just slightly adjusted it, and now it runs basically like stock.
No leaks. After installing them, everyone worries about vacuum leaks. Everyone worries about fuel leaks, things like that. We didn't have any. Throttle body was perfect. Gasket surfaces were fine. Everything was nice and flat and clean. So we didn't have anything issues with that. The injector length was proper, how the spacers were for the fuel rail. That went on perfect, so I didn't worry about any fuel leaks from injectors or anything like that.
Although I was a little hesitant with the product, based off the forum rumors, that the product works. It makes power, it bolts up, and everything runs the way it's supposed to run. And that was one of those things that, all said and done, I was more happy about that than anything.
Doug first comes to the shop when he started working here. He goes, "How's your toilet flush?" That's his first question. Not, "Where's my desk?" Not anything else. It's, "How's the toilet here?"
My toilet at home flushes a brick, you know, so.